from the point of attack, offensively and defensively. His ability to drive downhill and score in all three levels. And the thing about I like most about this young man at 26, he's so humble. He's so humble. And that speaks to the whole culture of OKC that Sam Presti and Mark Daigneault has built. Humble team, folks.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
No way that I'm betting on the Cleveland Cavaliers for any reason whatsoever.
No.
Ever. Like, when they had LeBron James, it was a different story. I think Spider's great. He's no LeBron. I don't see him carrying them to a title. And I don't believe in the Knicks at all. The Knicks never get it done.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Kevin Durant, at the age of 36 years old, after 17 seasons that he has played in the NBA DRS, is now on his way to H-Town.
I don't think it's a great move. I wanted him to go to a ready-made championship team full of a veteran roster and see if he can ring chase that way. Not to go to an organization on the come-up that if you just stay the course, and also, what better blueprint do we have than just staying the course and OKC, right?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
The WNBA adds 3 new expansion franchises in Detroit, Philly, and Cleveland. Plus, could this actually seriously be the last NBA season for LeBron? Hey everyone, welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm a heartbroken Renee Washington. But thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekdays. We're chatting the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We're also talking about Wimbledon and if Coco and Alcaraz can continue their winning ways. But first, let's dive right into the shoot around.
Yes, indeed. And welcome back, Renee. We really missed you. Let's start in the NFL. Big addition for the Steelers. The Dolphins traded 7-time Pro Bowl defensive back Jalen Ramsey to Pittsburgh in news that was actually broken by Ramsey himself on social media. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport said Ramsey's going to get $1.5 million in a raise. He'll make $26.6 million this season. Now, this is quite an offseason, Renee, for Pittsburgh. They've added Darius Slay, DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, and now Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, this is huge, especially because in that deal as well, we see offensive coordinator Arthur Smith reunited for the third time with tight end Jonnu Smith. Yeah. Plus, they get a 7th-round pick in the 2027 draft to Pittsburgh. But the deal for Pittsburgh especially, as you see, Jalen Ramsey broke the news and alluded to the steel curtain. Their secondary has been terrible. Bottom 8 in the league last year in terms of passing yards. And add him, but also to be able to get that deal financially done, that's why he's been on the trade block since May. And so when you look at the adjusted contract, that $1.5 million raise with that $26 million amount he's making this year, it helps for the Steelers for playing wise, but it helps for Miami financially. He was one of 4 guys on their team that accounted for 57% of their salary at $134 million going in this year with Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jalen Waddle. So they are able to offset that, get this deal done, and honestly, it's a win-win, especially for the Steelers.
And by the way, the Dolphins going to get safety Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 5th-round pick in this deal from the Steelers. Meanwhile, what was billed as a must-see game of the FIFA Club World Cup turned into a wipeout as Eurochamps PSG thumped Lionel Messi and Inter Miami 4-0 over the weekend, eliminating the final U.S. team in the tournament. Now, PSG moves on to the round of 16 against Bayern Munich, while Messi and Inter Milan, they play the MLS now. They will return back to MLS play.
Baker, we've learned so much about the Club World Cup, especially starting with, I know Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca was complaining about the heat conditions and weather conditions that have caused 2-hour delays for some games, questioning can FIFA not only have a major tournament like this year, but even like the World Cup next year. But also we've learned a lot about the MLS and the disparity. Financially, they've been catching up. Teams like LAFC and Inter Miami have cracked the top 20 of clubs across the world around that $1.2 billion valuation. But soccer-wise, huge gap, especially since it took until the 50th minute to get a shot for Inter Miami. And the passing completion was 26 to 126 in the first half alone. So when you have a team like PSG that has League One Golden Boot winner Ousmane Dembele that didn't even play until the second half, and you're up 4-0, the MLS has some work to do, absolutely.
Also because
soccer-wise.
Messi and Inter Miami were pretty much the only team bringing a ton of fans to these stadiums that had otherwise been full. This is nothing against PSG or these other big clubs, but the worries is will these U.S. stadiums continue to see more people in them when there's no U.S.
Seattle,
clubs especially?
LAFC couldn't even get a win in the group play, and then you have a team like PSG, the European champions, that dominate one of the best teams in the MLS. So
Let's move to the NBA. Pistons guard Malik Beasley reportedly under federal investigation. This over allegations of gambling on NBA games. This all according to ESPN. And if proven, he could be banned from the league for the rest of his life. ESPN says the allegations involve at least one prominent U.S. sportsbook detecting unusual heavy betting interest on Beasley's statistics in 2024 when he played for Milwaukee. And Renee, as of now, he hasn't been charged with anything, but ESPN is saying he was working on a new deal with the Pistons, and now that's on pause.
Yeah, he was one of the top free agents this offseason, and now the conversation's absolutely on pause for that, but also the NBA is allowing the federal investigation to be able to unfold. He's not the first NBA player, but he's honestly one of the biggest names we've seen in comparison to like a Terry Rozier, Jonte Porter. So it's massive looking at the games that he was playing in having adjustments in terms of the sports book. And I think it's going to be, unfortunately, the start of a long, long investigation.
All right, big news out of the WNBA. The league will expand to 18 teams by the end of the decade, with the announcement Monday of Cleveland getting a team in 2028. Detroit and Philadelphia are going to follow right after. So let's dive into that in our main event. And let's bring in Front Office Sports women's sports reporter Annie Costabile, who has been covering this for us. So Annie, why did the W announce today, and why these specific cities here?
Yeah, so by 2030, the WNBA is expanding to a record 18 teams. And what we learned today was really there was a prioritization on keeping this in-house. Obviously, there's been discussions and reports out there about Cleveland joining the WNBA, but as far as Philadelphia and Detroit being the other two that are included in this group of three that will bring the WNBA to 18 teams. It was really about, making a splash and saying, hey, look, we've said, expansion is a priority for us. We're showing you 3 teams by 2030 is no big thing. And that expansion fee of $250 million is something the WNBA was really happy to tout, especially, coming from these 3 teams.
Let's talk more about that expansion fee, because obviously the news of Philadelphia, Detroit, and adding Cleveland comes on the heels of Golden State this season and then Portland and Toronto moving forward for next season. And that expansion fee is massively higher than what they even paid per team. What does it say to the investment in the WNBA that the expansion fee continues to grow as the league also continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, it's at an all-time high. Obviously, the numbers say so. A league source confirmed that $250 million number to me, and it says exactly what we can infer from looking at it, is that the WNBA is a top-tier investment, and the rate at which these NBA owners are interested in getting into the WNBA says as much as well. There was a period of time in the W when you couldn't pay NBA owners to pay attention to the WNBA. I mean, look at the New York Liberty and the transfer of ownership there. So this ownership fee expansion fee speaks to, again, the interest in the WNBA and the prioritization being placed on the WNBA and the value of the WNBA. But again, we need to pay close attention to where these expansion teams are ending up and what ownership groups are getting them. And it's clear from the way that things have gone that there is priority being placed on ownership bids that have a tie to the NBA. And does that benefit the WNBA? Is it important to have ownership groups outside of the NBA? I mean, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, because the news with Dan Gilbert, the owner of Cleveland, the Cavaliers, going to be owning this Cleveland franchise. Yeah. You have the Comcast people of Brian Roberts and others involved with the Philly team as well. There was a lot of talk that the Connecticut Sun would have maybe potentially moved out of Connecticut, and it could have been one of these teams going to Philly or another one. What does this do for Connecticut? Do they stay now in Connecticut, or do they potentially come another team?
I think what we need to talk about when it comes to Connecticut is that it's about investment and it's about money. And for these franchises to be successful, it takes an incredible amount of infrastructure, money, backing in order to take a franchise from the level it's been in the WNBA to the level we're seeing these franchises rise to, the valuations we're seeing these franchises rise to. There's a reason that the Golden State Valkyries came in and right away have been projected to be at the top of the league as far as valuations go. That's because of the backing, again, from that Golden State ownership group. And so when you consider where the Sun are at, there's still a question of their financial future. And although Philly got into the league and they did say our priority was just to get a team. However we needed to get a team, we just wanted a team. So if they're not buying the Connecticut Sun, it doesn't mean that another NBA ownership group won't go after them.
And I do appreciate the timing of this around CBA negotiations. Of course, as players are advocating, and we're seeing Nneka Ogwumike and the WNBPA and others advocating for higher salary, larger roster opportunities. How important is this in this final 30 seconds to have more opportunities to show in the future the investment that players are also going to be getting?
I think, again, when you consider that $250 million buy-in fee, expansion fee, the players are paying attention to that. They see that, and that helps with negotiations. They see where they're valued at, and again, that helps with negotiations. We've seen the PA put out statements almost daily saying this is a business, and when you have, again, news break of these $250 million expansion fees, well, it only supports their argument that our salaries and what we're getting out of it, this does not equate to the value that the WNBA is bringing in. And so the CBA will reflect that.
All going to be interesting to watch. Annie, great stuff as always. Annie Costable, our women's sports reporter here at Front Office Sports. And coming up next, everyone, did LeBron just sign his final NBA contract? We're going to get to that and so much more. Don't go anywhere.
As we know, it's just we enter every year and it's, is this the Ravens' time? Is this Lamar Jackson's turn? Can they get past the Chiefs and all of these other, stalwarts of the AFC? But it's always really about Kansas City when we're talking Baltimore.
This potentially, Adam, as I send it back to you, potentially is a game changer in that you get a very talented quarter at a discount price.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We are seeing unbelievable temperature surges over the past couple days. So I wanted to ask you this question to let the people know, how do we account for that in our handicapping? Two good pitchers on the mound, but you look at a place like Wrigley Field, let's just say, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, 90-plus degree temperatures. Is it almost like you say to yourself, you just have to fade the environment and not worry about the pitches? Because if we're hitting fly balls, they're going yard.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter or this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I can't even believe I'm saying pitcher's battle and using the words Patrick Corbin. But can I tell you, Scott, he's a different guy. He's a totally different guy with the Rangers than we've seen.
I say this all the time. Don't worry about the first 5 innings. Don't even watch the first 5 innings in Texas Ranger games. Because for whatever reason, there's a ton of runs scored in the first 5, and then it just stops. It just stops.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and LeBron James opted into the final year of his contract with the Lakers over the weekend for $52.6 million next season. But Renee, the big question, will this actually literally be the last contract that the NBA's all-time leading scorer signs? Crazy to actually say that. For that and so much more, let's bring in Fred Katz, senior NBA writer over at The Athletic. Fred, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. So I guess the big question is this going to be LeBron's farewell tour?
Who knows? We ask this question around this time every year. We ask this question around the time when the Lakers get eliminated or when LeBron's team gets eliminated just about every year now, for the past, 2-3 years. And the guy keeps coming back. The guy keeps averaging 25. The guy keeps carrying his teams. So we'll see. Who knows? I am sure we will find out a year from now if he's going to play basketball a year from now. For now, we know he's going to be 41 years old next season, and he is the best 40-year-old and soon to be 41-year-old who ever picked up a basketball while still playing in the NBA. So
true.
enjoy it while you still can, I guess.
I guess. I mean, as a LeBron fan, I am heartbroken even at the thought of us having this conversation. I know Dalton Connected report, well, he was asked, I should say, about LeBron James. This was months ago, and it was mentioned that LeBron might play until he's 50. Going into year 23, where he's going to become the highest paid, longest tenured player across the NBA, it absolutely leads to the question. But with Luka Doncic's trade, it seemed like a move for the future. Do you think this, with the Rich Paul comments that have come out lately around, LeBron wanting to be on a team that's win now, that's adding pieces, how much pressure does this put on the Lakers to plan for the now to keep him so that he doesn't maybe explore a possible trade or even a different option like retirement?
I think it puts some amount of pressure on the Lakers. I don't know if it puts as much pressure on the Lakers as maybe people might think, considering the amount of sway that LeBron has had throughout the course of his entire career. Just because when the Lakers made the Doncic trade, as you just said, that was a move for them to say, this is about the future. This is Luka's team now. And I don't think the Lakers are just going to blow up their future or even negatively impact their future moving forward just in order to keep LeBron. If they can make a move that helps them win now without seriously injuring them in 2027, 28, 29, and so on and so forth, then I'm sure they'll do that. I don't think they're just going to give away picks for the sake of bringing in some guy who's a short-term stopgap and you can help them. I don't think they're sitting there believing, oh, you know what? We're one small piece away, and all of a sudden the Western Conference is ours. They were first round out this year and relatively decisively. So I think their heads are in the right place in terms of that sense. And I don't know if there's going to be some move where they give up 2 first-round picks and they get back Walker Kessler. Like I don't think that type of move is going to happen.
Or is the move to win now, because this would be LeBron's last season? Also, the Lakers are coming off of a $10 billion valuation being sold, and to the Dodgers owner who is known to spend money. Is there maybe a mindset that, yes, maybe this might be his last season and maybe we go all in for him?
Yeah, I don't really know what going all in is. I don't, again, it's more about resources than it is about money, because there is a cap and the Lakers are over it, and they're basically going to be able to use a mid-level exception potentially, and that's about it in order to sign a player. Free agency is somewhat sparse. There's a very decent chance they end up losing Dorian Finney-Smith. It sounds like the Houston Rockets are a real contender to bring him in.
Oh, jeez.
And that's going to be a really good addition for Houston if they can end up landing that. I don't know for sure if Finney-Smith is going to be ending up leaving the Lakers, but it's certainly nowhere near a done deal that he's going to end up returning to Los Angeles. And so that's something to keep an eye on too. I don't think, when you talk about all in, if you're talking about all in from a money perspective, I don't think they're going to be conservative in terms of spending their money. They don't have that much. There's not that much of a difference financially between all in and not all in that sense, though. If you're talking about all in from a resources perspective, trading all the young players, trading as many draft picks as you possibly can, I don't think that's the move the Lakers are going to make. When they made the Luka trade, it wasn't about 2025. It wasn't about 2026. It was about the future and bringing in a guy who's currently a superstar, but who will be a superstar for a very long time because he's only in his mid-20s, whereas LeBron has 15 years on Luka. So I think right now the centerpiece of the organization, from the way the Lakers see it, is that Luka is there, not necessarily LeBron. And it's great to have LeBron, and you want to try to win, but you're not going to ruin necessarily Luka's future to go all in from a resources standpoint on a team that just lost in the first round.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Without a doubt. And obviously, free agency period does officially start today, even though it feels like we've been talking free agency much sooner. But with LeBron James news, there were other notable names as well. James Harden's 2-year deal with the Clippers for $81.5 million. Julius Randle's 3-year, $100 million deal to stay with Minnesota. And then even the Rockets with Jabari Smith Jr. off of that massive Kevin Durant trade, they now lock him in for a 5-year, $122 million extension. With free agency being such a priority for teams, which of these names, or maybe there's another, do you feel like absolutely got it right and needed to make sure to keep that guy?
Yeah, I think the Rockets situation is incredibly interesting because what they're going to have now, especially with Smith. First of all, I think that number, $122 million, sounds like a ton, but with the way that the cap is just rising and rising and rising, expected to be $154 million next season, about $170 million the year after that, and it's going to go up by about 10% of the previous year's cap, potentially for the next few years moving forward here. And so that 122 over 5 years is going to become a lesser and lesser and lesser percentage of the cap. I think that was a pretty good deal for them. But what's really interesting for Houston is that Tari Eason is extension eligible as well. And he was the same draft class as Jabari. They're both really good defenders. They're both integral to the identity that team plays. They just lost the money for Jalen Green. However, they're bringing in Kevin Durant, who is extension eligible as well, and who you might have to sign up for, around $120-ish million over adding on 2 years to his deal. So that's about $60 million a year. And all of a sudden next year, you're over the cap with just 6 players, and that doesn't include Tari Eason. So I'm very curious to see what ends up happening with Tari Eason extension negotiations. If they don't reach one, what do they do there? They just extended Steven Adams on a pretty team-friendly descending deal. It's going to be $13 million next year. I wonder if they just say, you know what, we'll be able to throw Adams and Reed Shepherd into something next year and get off of them. But Reed Shepherd's money is a lot because he was such a high draft pick. He starts making 8 figures starting next year. So they're in a very interesting financial position moving forward. And the Jabari Smith extension is basically them saying, we're still good with you.
Yeah.
We totally believe in everything that you are and what you've been in this, 3-and-D mold that you're going to be able to take as like a really big defensive-minded forward.
It's going to be crazy to see what happens this next week. Fred, good analysis. Thank you so much, Fred, for joining us. Fred Katz, senior NBA writer over at The Athletic. And we got a lot more front office sports today coming your way right after this very quick break.
What do you make of this price tag here, reportedly, of $1.7 billion for a club that right now technically doesn't even have a home ballpark?
We don't see a lot of teams sold in Major League Baseball. I mean, if you go back to 2020, Steve Cohen bought the New York Mets for $2.4 billion. The only team sold since then was the Orioles last year, also for around $1.7 billion.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
And there's this one guy that's popping for me. It's like Tillinghast, Bombers Paradise, Get Hot with the Putter, Northeast New York Horse. Like, I know a guy that fits that profile pretty well that won a pretty big tournament at Wingfoot. Like, this is this like perfect for Bryson?
It's perfect for Bryson.
Wow. The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I do believe that SJ now is the #1 player in the world. The things that he can do from the point of attack, offensively and defensively, his ability to drive downhill and score in all 3 levels. And the thing I like most about this young man at 26, he's so humble. He's so humble. And that speaks to the whole culture of OKC that Sam Presti and Mark Daigneault has built. Humble team, folks.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, friends, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and let's talk tennis. Front Office Sports could report that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross nearing a deal to buy a 45% stake in the Miami Open. That's one of the most prestigious tennis tournaments outside of the Grand Slams. And speaking of the Grand Slams, the 138th edition of Wimbledon underway. This with a record $73 million pool prize. So can tennis keep the momentum from a stellar French Open? Well, let's bring in FOS reporter Eric Fisher. Eric, good to see you as always. So let's talk a little bit about this record prize money. It seems like the men and women both going to be getting a big chunk of that.
Yeah, there's been a really good upward movement across the sport. All the majors in recent years have been steadily increasing year after year. It's about 7% overall for the Wimbledon prize pool, 11% for the men's and women's singles winners year over year increase. And a lot of this is just continued increase in revenue, more attendance, higher ticket prices, step ups year over year in media rights, and that money is making its way to the players.
Yeah, and we're also getting the continued conversation around expansion. Of course, the site of Wimbledon is the only Grand Slam that lacks the current space to be able to have their qualifying matches on site. And there's been the discussion around plans for the 2 new parks and some other factors. What's the status? What's the latest on finally getting this into fruition and make it happen?
Yeah, this is a fascinating situation where the All England Club wants to triple its footprint just outside of London and have a full complement of courts to mirror what we have here in New York with the U.S. Tennis Center or what we have in Roland Garros and other places. And it's a really kind of a classic NIMBY fight that there was a proposal put forth to do that. It got initial approval, and there is now a court fight among some local residents in the All England Club, and we're waiting to see what the outcome of that's going to be.
Let's talk about this current Wimbledon. It's coming on the heels of a record-setting French Open, which we saw great ratings for TNT, who was broadcasting the French Open. ESPN is going to be covering Wimbledon. But a lot of that obviously had to do with Coco Gauff winning. And then, of course, Alcaraz looking now for his 3rd straight Wimbledon win as well. So is there a continued hope here that just building off the momentum of the last really good Grand Slam we got?
Yeah, they're both on the men's and women's sides. There's some real good star power and some real interesting competitive stories. On the men's side, we have a real sort of classic rivalry between the Italian Jannik Sinner and the Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz. And they've already had a number of great Grand Slam championship battles, including the one you just referenced at the French Open. We may see them yet again here. They're on opposite sides of the bracket. On the women's side, it's much more wide open. There's probably 5, 6, 7 different women who have a legitimate shot to win it. The betting odds reflect that. But there's a lot of talent on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And as we talked about at the top of this conversation, Eric, with the 138th Wimbledon Championship underway, does it feel like tennis is moving in the right direction of the rivalries and all just the storylines of growing the engagement from fans, but also the investment in this final 1 minute that we have?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's always, we see this across a number of sports when you have major icons like a Serena Williams or Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal and so forth. And similar, in basketball after Michael Jordan, how do you sort of move on past those GOAT level talents? And we see this happening now in tennis with both men and women, a new generation of stars really coming up and holding their own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's Sabalenka, by the way, the #1 ranked woman in the world, has never won Wimbledon. So it'll be interesting to see that. Eric Fisher, thank you so much, our front office sports reporter. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, no more to see here. Newly selected Utah guard Ace Bailey says he's now blessed to play for the Jazz. And he says he never thought about holding out or forcing a trade after the team drafted him last week. This comes after his agent came on this very show to dispel any rumors that Ace was unhappy being selected by the Jazz. So all is good now.
All is good. And it just reminds us, this is an 18-year-old that we're talking about. And he had to, as he mentioned, work through the process his way and what worked best for him. So Ace Bailey went to the practice facility as soon as he landed. He was excited to be there. And he's just a big kid, essentially, taking this all in, but looking forward to playing with the Utah Jazz. So I'm glad we're clearing all the rumors. And even for his Rutgers head coach speaking about how great of a player he is and a great person he is, I think that maybe some of this draft process kind of had us misled on who Ace Bailey really is.
Totally. And look, this is always a learning lesson for a lot of these kids, especially when they don't want to work out for a lot of the teams. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, we're coming up on Front Office Sports tomorrow. We're going to celebrate Bobby Bonilla Day, as we do every July 1st, when the former MLB star gets his $1 million check from the Mets every year until 2035. Take a look at this.
I think a lot of people are blown away by the deal.
The famed Bobby Bonilla contract is really sort of an outgrowth of the end of his career. He's come back to the Mets a second time. He still had $5.9 million left on his contract, and there was a mutual desire to not pay that all out in one lump sum, but to spread this out in this very unique fashion.
Playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip.
Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Pages. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're not